Hello and welcome to the Baby Loss Podcast with me, Gabriella Austin. This podcast is for bereaved parents like myself to share their story around baby loss and miscarriage. Today I'm joined by my friend Sam, who tells the story of her molar pregnancy and the surgery she needed as she miscarried. Molar pregnancies are extremely rare and unfortunately non-viable. Many of my new friends I met through a charity called SANS, which is the stillbirth and neonatal death charity. Baby loss is unfortunately more common than people think and certainly more common than discussed. Whilst I would like to raise awareness around this taboo subject, my main aim is to provide parents with a safe place to talk about their babies, wherever they may be in their journey. 2020 was a year like no other. Loneliness set in for many, bringing back feelings and memories of loss. There is no judgment here and every journey is different. Welcome to 2021, where we tell the stories of our babies gone too soon. Trigger warning for this episode: discussion on baby loss, miscarriage, molar pregnancy, rainbow baby, living children, and contains explicit content. Hello, I'm joined today by my friend Sam. We met at East Surrey Hospital and we were both having a similar procedure. Sam, unfortunately, had a miscarriage, suffered with a molar pregnancy, and she's here to tell us her story about her miscarriage.
Can I start?
Yeah, go.
Okay. Hi, so my name is Sam. When I was 32 years old, I had my second pregnancy. I had my daughter when I was 29 years old. Her name's Tiana. So after having her, she was 4 years old, and we decided that I wanted to give her a baby brother or sister. So we were trying for a baby. Not not religiously. We were just trying. I wasn't on the pill or anything. And then my period was late, so obviously I did the test. I wasn't expecting anything. I'd done a few pregnancy tests before. I did the pregnancy test. It was positive. Very, very surprised because I wasn't expecting it, and I'm very, very excited. And like anyone, when they find out that they're pregnant and they look at the stick and it's a positive, you just get very, very excited. And it's very easy to start thinking ahead of yourself, which is what I did. So you get very, very excited. You want to tell everyone, but we didn't. I think I told my mum and my dad. I probably did tell a couple of friends, but I can't remember. So that was that. I just carried on as normal, because I didn't think I was too far. Um, and then I had my first doctor's appointment, but because I was so early and hadn't booked a scan or anything. And then I think when I was about 7 to 8 weeks pregnant, I was on a night shift at work, and I started getting pains in my tummy. Not really bad pains, it was a bit like a cramp. But as the night went on, the cramps were getting quite bad. So I called the early pregnancy unit in East Surrey on my night shift, and they told me just to see how I was feeling, because I wasn't bleeding, it was just pain. I had no bleeding or anything. So the following morning, I knelt over in pain. I needed to hold my tummy. So I went to East Surrey and went to the early pregnancy unit. I went in there by myself. They scanned me. They do like a scan just to see if everything looks how it should do. But when they did the scan, they couldn't see what they would expect to see for somebody that was 8 weeks pregnant. So they sent me for blood tests. When my blood tests came back, I think it was a couple of hours, that was on the 10th of October, my hormone levels, my HCG levels were very high, higher than what is normally expected of someone that has an 8-week pregnancy. So initially they weren't sure what was wrong. They thought I may be having an ectopic pregnancy. So they had to do further tests for an ectopic pregnancy. It wasn't that was ruled out. What they did tell me was that they expected that I wasn't having a normal pregnancy. They weren't 100% sure. At first they thought maybe I was just a couple of weeks earlier than what I thought my dates were. So they suggested that I was to go back again in a couple of more days to have my blood tests again to see how far my HCG levels had gone up again. So that I went in on the 10th. I then had to go and have another blood test on the 12th and another one on the 14th. And from the initial blood HCGs, my level were nearly 2,000. And then when I went 2 days later, it was nearly 4,000. So their levels had gone up, they'd increased quite a lot to what it should have been. So when I went for my last blood test was on the 14th of October. So 4 days after my first scan at the early pregnancy department. They basically told me that my pregnancy wasn't, I can't remember the words they used, the right wording they used, but it was an abnormal pregnancy. And they expected me to go home and miscarry while I was at home. And they told me to go back on a week later, a week after the 14th, where I would have another scan and they'd be able to do my blood tests again, just to see where I was at. So I went home. I hadn't been bleeding. I'd just had like tummy pain. When I had these feelings, you get the feeling like you're in the early stages of pregnancy. So I was just feeling like I was just the early stages of pregnancy. It was nothing more than that. So they sent me home. That weekend that I went home, I actually went shopping with my mum, and we were talking about what we think it could be. And we kind of just thought maybe I am just a little bit earlier than what I thought I was. So that week I just spent it in a bit of a daze really, because I didn't really know what was going on. And then the week after the 14th, when I went for my follow-up appointment at East Surrey, I went in on my own, went into the early pregnancy section where I'd been before. Again, I had to go and have my scan done, but this time when I had my scan, the sonographer had a look at it. She wasn't happy with what she saw, so she had to call in somebody else to come and have a look. And as soon as that lady saw, she could see that there was no pregnancy. There was not. It was so where the baby should have been looked like a bunch of grapes. That's that's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, that was my understanding of it as well.
Yeah. So she that was that. I was in one room 1 minute, and then she told me to go and take a seat outside, because she needed to explain and speak to me further. So yeah, I didn't really know what she meant, because she just said what I saw on the screen were just a bunch of grapes. So and at that point they still weren't very clear on what they thought was wrong. So I had to have my HCG levels again, and at this point they were nearly 20,000.
Oh my god.
I'm not sure what the normal levels are, but they were 20,000
No,
then. And then that night I had to spend it in hospital. They had to just recheck everything. And then the following morning I went for another scan, and that's when I was told that that was what they thought it could be, but they weren't 100% sure. That morning or in the afternoon, I can't remember if it's the morning or the afternoon, I had to go and have a D&C where they basically empty everything that's in the uterus. It's called a diagnostic laparoscopy. It's just an evacuation of retained products of everything that's in your uterus. So they did that. That all gets sent away to a lab, and then they have to test what they've sent away. So when that came back, it took about, I think I was in hospital. I had that done. They had to keep checking my HCG levels. That got sent away, and I think I went home the following morning, but I didn't get the results from that for about 5 or 6 weeks. And when the results came back for that, that's when they advised me that what I'd had is called a complete molar. So you can have a complete molar or you can have a partial molar. So what I had was a complete molar, which is when an egg is fertilized with a sperm, with one sperm, but the egg has no chromosomes in it. So the baby can't form. A partial molar is when it's two normal eggs get fertilized by, one normal egg gets fertilized by two sperms, and then that results in the fetal pole, and the baby starts to develop, but it would never develop properly. It would always end in a miscarriage. So yeah, that was that. I got the results for that. With a complete molar, the what's growing inside of you is basically a tumor. So instead of a baby growing, you have a tumor growing, and the tumor can develop and it can grow everywhere and it can go into your uterus. And your HCG levels can keep increasing when you have the DNC, if they don't get rid of the whole molar. So after you've had a molar pregnancy, if complete molar pregnancy, for 6 months after you've had that, you have to have weekly blood and urine draws to check your HCG levels. So if your HCG levels keep going up, what you've got can develop into a cancer. So they have to keep an eye on your levels to make sure that they keep going down. So I had my 6 monthly draws after I had my complete molar, and my HCGs went down. It went down slowly at the beginning, but it went down completely after the 6 months. So after you've had a molar pregnancy, whether it's complete or partial, they advise you not to try and get pregnant for 6 months afterwards, because your hormones need to try and level out and get back to some kind of normality. Otherwise, it could happen again. So a molar pregnancy can happen within, it's 1 in 1,000 pregnancies can become a molar pregnancy. But then after that, if you have a molar pregnancy, there's only 1% chance of you having another molar pregnancy a second time. So it's not likely if you have it once that you'll have it again. So yeah, that's what happened with me. But I was lucky enough to have get pregnant again the following year and had a baby boy, and he was healthy, he was fine. So I'm lucky.
Yeah, you are very lucky.
Yeah.
I wanted to interject so much during that, but for good things. You know, thank you so much for telling us about, obviously, the early stages of your pregnancy, and then what then eventually turned into a loss. But we actually met. We met at the early pregnancy unit, but we didn't really talk to each other because I think we were both just too fucking sad like
I
you.
spoke to your mum.
Yeah. You sitting there, oh my goodness. So
She just knew as soon as I walked out
yeah.
that room.
Mm-hmm. What I remember, so this might have been me coming back from the toilet and that was the first time I saw you or something, but I remember walking into reception and you were sitting sort of like curled up in one of those shitty plastic armchair things that they've got in that room.
Yeah.
and you were crying, and you're normally in that waiting room because you're in there for an early pregnancy reason, and it's probably because you had a miscarriage before, or because something isn't right at the beginning of this pregnancy. And I don't know if you noticed, but something that I remember from that particular waiting room was there was like a newspaper like article on the wall, and it was a nurse. I don't know if she was, or a midwife. I don't know if she
Yeah.
was from East Surrey or from another hospital. But the headline read something like, after 14 miscarriages, I finally got, the baby, or I finally got the rainbow that I wanted. And I remember looking at that thinking, fuck being here 14 times before you have your baby. Like, when I met you, that was my third time in there. And I knew in my head, regardless of whether I was actually physically going to be able to have children again, that was going to be my, like, when you look back, you sort of, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm not going through this again. Don't care what anyone says. No one can force me. I can't put myself back in this fucking waiting
Yeah,
room
no,
again.
that little room, that not that time when I saw you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it must have been when I went for the first or the second scan, and it's when the girls come out and they're holding their scan of like a fully formed baby,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, my scan should have looked like that.
Yeah. And every single like antenatal waiting room that I've ever sat in, and probably all of us, and I don't know, I like to look at the posters. I think it's because I'm nosy or because I'm nervous, so I have to have a look around and see what's going on. But they all say 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, and every single time I've been in that waiting room, it's been me. I'm the 1 out of the
Yeah,
4. Like, that's what it feels like. But
yeah.
yeah, that little waiting room that's just one of the worst places to be. But then I met you, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
But yeah, that was that.
well, thank you for sharing that with me, with us.
It's all right.
I hadn't ever heard of a molar pregnancy before.
No, I haven't, but still loads of people haven't, and even I don't think doctors know. In England, there's Charing Cross Hospital and one in Sheffield, and they're the only 2 hospitals that deal with molar pregnancies in the whole of the UK.
My God.
So I don't even think doctors really know much about it, and they're still trying to find out more about it now.
Yeah.
On Facebook, there's a website called a page on Facebook called Molar Angels or Molar Pregnancies. That's where I got all my information from afterwards.
Oh, okay.
I'm still on it now. I still read it now.
Yeah. I yeah, and I still haven't to this day heard of another molar pregnancy either. In all the
No.
obviously I'm not a part of the molar like Facebook group, but even on the other miscarriage sites or any forums or any of the groups that I've been to, you're still the only person that's even experienced
Yeah,
that.
no, I'd not heard of it before. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's easier to talk to me because it's me, even though you know this is going to go out and other people will hear your story, or do you find it easy to talk about it because it was 6 years ago?
No, I think it's probably a bit of both because I don't really talk about it with anyone else because nobody really. The thing is, with when you have a miscarriage, there's like 2 extremes. People will either be, oh, I'm really sorry, or they'll pretend to be sorry, but really they don't care.
Yeah.
Like they just, you feel that's how I feel anyway. So I'd rather not talk about it.
Yeah,
But
because you don't want to become upset because you don't want somebody sort of like being fake towards you. Is that what you mean?
yeah,
Or
well, no, I just feel that some people don't think it's that much of a big deal.
yeah,
So I'd rather not. I'd rather not say it out loud.
yeah,
But yeah,
because
I
it's
don't
your
know. But
business.
then, yeah, but saying that, after the day after it happened, I actually put a massive post on Facebook and put like everything that had happened on it because I found it easier to write stuff down than say it out loud.
Yeah,
So I wrote it all down. I put it on my status, and that weekend when I was at home, I had so many private messages from people, so many people who had had like miscarriages, um, just talking about it
yeah.
and just saying that they'd that they were thankful basically for me putting the post up because they were too scared to have ever said anything.
Oh,
Um, but then about I think a few days after I put the post up, I did remove it because it was just getting a bit too much. I was getting too many messages, and I was already down anyway, and it was getting a little bit too much.
yeah. And sometimes that's how I know that a Facebook friend, someone I've known since I was at school, when they post something like I'm 1 in 4 on, like Baby Loss Awareness Week or something, that's like their subtle way And the only way that I would know that they'd had a miscarriage, because that's how they decide to share it, raise awareness. But that's brave though, to just put something straight out like that. Oh, I'm 1 in 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Such a taboo subject that no one really talks about it, do they?
Mm-mm.
It's either people, I think people are just afraid of upsetting people, and also people's opinions are so different,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's just easier to keep quiet.
Yeah, I think that the person that's had the miscarriage is more worried about upsetting the person that they're telling than upsetting themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever found that, because you end up apologizing, like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. It's like, I know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
I think I can't really think of an example for myself, because I've only been on like social media for since I went back to work, really, so about 5 years. But I always find it quite a good place to quickly blur everything out, so that everyone can read it. They can see what's happened to you. Here's all the information. Don't ask me any more questions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been getting loads of questions recently, just about where me and Rob are in, like in our life. Are we going to have children and stuff like that? And I just think, oh, I might as well just talk a little bit about it on here as well, because if people are going to listen, then everyone's going to know, rather than we can't see anyone at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good that you're talking.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm so happy. I'm so pleased that you came on and spoke about it, because I could have read from a sheet, or you can put a link, in Facebook and on Facebook, and people can read about it, or I could have just sort of like read from a script. But it was good to, okay, it wasn't good that it happened to you, but it's now that you can come on and talk about it. That's really good.
Yeah, like a couple of years after it happened, I don't think I would have been able to have spoken about it.
No.
Because,
Yeah, I think with with the SANS group that I go to, people talk about like little fundraising, like I say little, but fundraising events that they have done, quiz nights, and somebody's brother, I think he did an Ironman, and someone ran a 10K, I did a 5K, and literally since I've always really wanted to sort of keep her memory alive, and I know I do that in little subtle ways by buying everything that's a rainbow, and everything I wear is sort of brightly coloured, and her headstone's brightly coloured and stuff like that. But you really need to be in a place where you're actually ready to do something about it. I wasn't ready to sit and talk like this about it 6 months after it happened. I needed to wait until it had been obviously a bigger chunk of time. So that's why I find it easier to talk about it now, 6 years later. Definitely.
It will get easier, but you'll never forget it, though, will you? You'll never forget.
No. Never.
Any of it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you've remembered, or you want to add to your story or anything?
So before I had my appointment on the 20th of October, so the week after I was told to go home and miscarry, because I didn't know what was going on, we paid to go and have a private scan.
Oh,
so
okay.
we paid for the private scan and went to Hawley, where you can just go and have like 3D scans, depending on how far. We just went and paid because I wanted to see if I had, basically, if she'd give me a different outcome.
Yeah.
But she didn't, so we paid. We went and saw private sonographer, and she couldn't see. She basically said the same thing as what the hospital sonographer said, that there was nothing there. She thought she could see a bleed, but she wasn't 100% sure. And then what she does gets sent straight to my doctor's surgery.
Oh, okay.
And then so that lady sent us the scan to the doctors, and then I called the doctor's surgery the following morning and said to him, can you tell me what you think it is? And he said, from what I can see of that scan, I don't think it's a viable pregnancy. And then I obviously went for my hospital appointments on the 22nd and then found out what it was. But no, this is all here. Oh. You see, this is like, can you see that?
Yeah.
This is, oh my God. this is like all of the paperwork just for that.
Just for, just for those couple of weeks, but yeah, for those couple of weeks.
I've kept it. I don't know why I've kept it. I just have. It's always just been in a box of paperwork, that's filed away.
Yeah.
No, I don't know why I've kept it, but I have. Yeah.
See, I'm the complete opposite. I haven't kept anything. I have scanned photos. I have. We had 3D scans, so I have my normal scan photos, my 3D scan photos. Nothing else from my pregnancy. Not one thing. I just, if I had it, I threw it, and I've certainly never requested it from the doctor, or I've never asked to see my notes or anything. But yeah, so you've kept a giant like wedge of paper, and I couldn't bring it home. Like after it happened, they just kept my notes at the hospital. I didn't want them.
No, I got these notes because after the Molar pregnancy, I was bleeding a lot. And I had to have, I think it was in 2016, I had to have a hysteroscopy again because I kept bleeding loads and I didn't know why. So after I had the hysteroscopy, I requested all my doctor's notes because I wanted to see if anything could have been connected.
Yeah.
That was one.
Did they connect anything?
No. I just thought maybe the reason I was bleeding again, and I had been bleeding ever since the Molar pregnancy, was because they maybe hadn't taken it all.
Yeah.
So when I had the hysteroscopy, they basically take everything out again.
Yeah.
It's like a vacuum. They just clear you out. So yeah. No, I just think when people have a miscarriage, it's not necessarily the physical part of it. It's the mental part of it. So especially people that haven't even had a baby yet. So when you get the positive on your stick, you build everything up so much in your head, and you start thinking about, oh, what's it going to be like when I have a baby? You start planning ahead, and when that's all taken away from you just like that, it's that you've built up this whole life, the whole life with the baby in your head, and that when that's taken away from you, that's worse than what it did to you physically.
Yeah.
I think that's what people don't really understand that have never had one.
Yeah.
But then there's people also that have had miscarriages that themselves just think, oh, it just wasn't meant to happen, and just shrug it off.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think it's okay to feel like that, because everyone's different, and yeah, people believe in different things, like people. But I personally, if people say to me, oh, like things happen for a reason, I have said a few times, like to, this sounds a bit horrible, but there are a few of my ex-colleagues that I actually, I answered that question by saying, my daughter didn't die in my arms for a fucking reason. That's not what happened. Like, oh, it was a sign from God. No, it wasn't. Like, it's fun. Honestly, I might be joking about it, and it is okay if that's what you believe, but it's just not what I believe.
No.
She's supposed to be here, and she isn't. So yeah, so I'm just going to keep talking about her.
Good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. you know, you said that you'd had a couple of negative pregnancy tests before.
Yeah.
Were they over a series of months, or were they just over sort of like a series of weeks where you were waiting for your period to come?
Yeah, no, that was
Sorry, did I just interrupt you?
just
Just carry on.
no, that was just literally a couple of months, I think, from what
Oh,
I can
okay.
remember. Yeah. So it happened very quickly. So with my first pregnancy, that took us a long, long time to conceive. But this one, the second one with my molar, I don't think it took that long. But we weren't. I just wasn't using contraception, so we were just like, oh, we'll see what happens. We weren't actively trying.
Okay, so then like your period was late and then you thought, oh, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, my period was late,
Yeah.
and then, but to be honest, I'd felt a bit off for a couple of weeks before I'd even got that. So yeah, did the test and
Yeah, it took over a year to fall pregnant with, like, to get pregnant the first time for me. But then once that happened, so I had my first miscarriage and I didn't even have a period. I just fell pregnant straight away because they said, just go home and keep trying and you'll be really fertile now. And yeah,
yeah,
like I said, that just happened so quickly. Like it took so long for us. I know some people, it lasts, it's a lot longer to sort of like to get pregnant, but for a whole year for a young couple who are sort of like, you think are quite sort of like fit and
yeah,
healthy, you think you're just going to be normal. It took that whole year, and then after that it was just like pregnant just so quickly. So yeah, just happened so quickly
yeah.
after.
I think it's probably a lot worse emotionally for people that have tried for so long. And when they do, the excitement and everything, and then it can just be taken away from them within like minutes. It's just gone.
Yeah, I think so. For me, 1 year was a long time. Like I said, so some people sort of try for a lot longer. I do also think though that the people that try for longer are actually, maybe I was less excited because you I don't know. I don't know whether I just had this feeling throughout all three of my pregnancies that I was going to have a miscarriage. It's just so bizarre, but I don't know. I wasn't over the moon about it. Like I remember thinking I was, but not sort of like openly excited about it because I'd been trying for so long and I thought, okay, I really want this. I'm really going to savor this and I'm going to do everything that I should be doing. And I think that's probably why I don't know, we didn't tell anyone.
Maybe because you'd had the first miscarriage, you couldn't enjoy the two times after the first one because you
Yeah.
knew what happened the first time. Because when after my molar pregnancy, when I got pregnant with Samuel, the pregnancy was it was horrible because I was anxious all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd literally cry before my scans because I didn't know what they were going to say. But if I hadn't had the molar pregnancy, I think I would have been fine. It's because you just worry.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would worry.
You do just worry. I want to talk about you a little bit now because you're just one of the kindest people I've ever met, ever. And sometimes I can tell this story sort of like without crying, and then sometimes I can't. And I just love you so much. I really do. Um, so yeah, I think as well that morning when you had your D&C, I think I jumped the queue.
Yeah, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I think
That's sort of like our friendship though, really. Like, no, I have to come first. No, we're going to talk about me first.
I
Oh,
think you
no,
were a
it's
lot
me.
worse. I think you were a lot worse that
Yeah.
morning than what I was.
Oh my God, that was fucking hideous.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How I just peeked round the curtain.
Yeah. Okay. So little bit of a lead up. I was so when did you say, what date was that?
The 20th, I think it was the 22nd or the 23rd. I
Yeah. So
think it was I've got a feeling it was the 23rd. And then, yeah, it was the 23rd. And I went home on the 24th of October.
yeah, so that was literally exactly a month after Isabella, because her birthday was on her birthday's the 23rd. So this whole sort of like that whole 4 weeks, I had a sort of like normal bleed, like a just sort of like a normal period. But then what was happening sort of 2 weeks then before that lead up, so in the middle as well, we had Isabella's funeral. And then for 2 weeks, I don't care what anybody says, at night I had such bad bleeding. I bled so bad every night. Nothing would happen in the day. This is a bit graphic, but even if I was to sort of like use a tampon, there wouldn't be anything there all day. I'd get into bed and then wake up really early in the morning and just feel wet, knowing that I'd bled quite a lot. So, and I was showing pictures to my mum, and obviously I was showing my ex, what was happening, and in all my pads and stuff like that in the morning. And then that nothing would happen during the day. So eventually, obviously, I get to the hospital because I think maybe that's where I should go. And they said that I could stay the night because I had, like low sats and stuff, just because of like my medical history anyway. And because I'd had a couple of miscarriages before, and I'd only just lost Isabella sort of, literally a month ago. So yeah, so then we ended up in beds next to each other on the ward. And we eventually sort of spoke to each other. Like I said, my mum had said, what had my mum just spoken to you? She said that
Yeah,
she just
yeah.
gave you a hug. I was just
Yeah,
like,
your mum
it's really
just
shit.
when I came out of that room, and that horrible room we don't like, she just came over to me and gave me a cuddle. And then she told me what happened to you.
Oh.
And then, yeah, we ended up on the ward next to each other.
Yeah. One thing that I'd hope you don't mind me sharing, that my mum said to me, that this was sort of like after.
Yeah.
She said that I can't remember which way round, or maybe you'll remember, or maybe she'll remember, that
Yeah.
you said to her, it's just really sad. And my mum said, yeah, it is really sad. Or my mum said, it's really sad. And then you said, yeah, it's just really sad, because there's no other word. It's just, you're just sad.
No,
Like that. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, it's really sad. And sometimes I say now, like, it's pretty shit. And it was just shit. It was so shit. It was so sad. It was
it
horrible.
is sad.
Oh my God, so sad. And yeah, so you told me about Tiana, that you had a little girl, and then I was
Yeah.
talking about Isabella, and I think we probably got a little bit teary. And anyway, I was telling you that, I've been having this bleeding, and now it's sort of like disappeared, and they don't believe me. Like, honestly, they didn't believe me. They even did like an internal examination, and it was dry. Like there wasn't a drop of blood anywhere. They just thought, she's just going crazy. Like, is she actually going crazy? Is she just sad? Is she depressed? Is she, what's
Yeah.
going on with her? Sort of probably thought we better get her in, just in case she's, going a bit balmy. And yeah, so that morning woke up and went to the toilet, because again, so I had bled in the night, woke up, and I went to the toilet, and the blood just didn't stop coming. So I pulled the buzzer, and they came in, and I have. Oh my God! Everyone is going to think, why are you laughing? It was horrible, because it's you couldn't write it, like, you can't make it up. It's actually what happened to me. Like, so the doctor comes in who's been on the night round, and she's the person I saw the night before, and I was sitting on the toilet and I literally opened my legs and I was like, see, I told you. You didn't believe me, it won't stop. So they've put me on a lovely commode and wheel me back to my bed, and then um I'm sure you said to me,
Was that in the night? Or
no,
was
that
that
was
the...
like
Because
that was the morning. That was like 5 o'clock in the morning because all the night stuff was still there. So they hadn't believed me all night. And then just before the end of their shift, before they have to do the handover, I'm in the toilet like, I told you. This isn't phantom, it's real, it's horrible. It's like, it's actually uncontrollable. Yeah, so you so I sort of like went back behind the curtain and you said to me, "Are you not going to the toilet, are you?" And I was like, "No." You were like, "Can I come in?" You were like, "I'm coming in." Actually, I think you were like, "I'm coming in." And yeah, and I'm like, at that time I was just laying on the bed and you were just sort of like sitting there holding my hand, and I
I
probably couldn't actually even remember your name. Do you know what I mean? At that
I
point,
do remember. I do remember that. And then I think a nurse put her head round to tell me to get in my bed, and I said, "Just wait, we're just having a minute."
I don't know if you can see this. Oh my god! When I explain, like when I talk about this with my CBT counsellor, I just remember thinking, so I don't know if you were there as well at this point, because whether they'd already told you to sort of just get back into bed and stop messing around. Like, this isn't a sleepover. This is real. Like, I just remember like just being in and out of consciousness the whole time. Like, and I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't answer anyone's questions. I wanted to sit up, but I physically couldn't. And like I explain it as this feeling of just sort of like feeling like I was being emptied and just being squashed and like sinking into the bed. Like, I don't know, because they took all my clothes off, but I think it's just because there's just blood everywhere. I remember being
No.
like, oh, I haven't got any clothes on.
I'm sure you had one of the gowns. I'm sure you had a gown on. They'd have
Okay.
given you that gown. I
Yeah.
can just remember, all I can remember is being sat beside your bed and the nurse coming in to tell me to get back to my own bed.
Oh
She
my
was
God.
quite a young nurse, actually. There was a really nice young one, who, because I don't think they all knew what had happened to either of us really.
Okay.
And then I remember telling one of the younger nurses in the
Oh,
morning. I think it was after you'd gone, because you were taken down for your D&C, and then I was booked in after.
yeah.
But then you went straight to was it ICU?
Yeah.
The high
High
dependency.
dependency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, so I remember though coming into recovery. I was in recovery, and then you came in recovery in the bed opposite me.
Did your mum come over to me?
No, because nobody was allowed in there. The nurse came over to it, a nurse or who,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd probably asked a surgeon to do it. I don't know, but I was like, excuse me, can you go over there? Did I give you my number or did I ask for your number?
Oh, I can't remember that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I remember that because I just went back to the same ward after that, and then just went and had all the other tests and the blood tests I needed to have. And then I remember I'd asked the nurses on the ward where you'd gone, and then that's how I knew you'd gone to the high dependency unit.
Yeah.
And then I came and saw you the following
Mm-hmm.
morning with a chocolate bar.
Yeah. So good.
like,
You were
like
my
a chocolate bar is going to make everything better.
well, you were my first visitor though. Do you know what I mean? Like no one else, because it happened it happened so quickly, and we'd gone down so early in the morning, and then I'd just gone to bed, and I guess my parents had just sort of like texted around to just say like, oh, Gab had an operation and now she's back in the hospital. But yeah, so but one of the funniest things about you coming up with that chocolate is that I hadn't eaten chocolate for about 10 years.
Did you eat it?
Yeah.
That's so
But
funny.
obviously, like, I didn't have the heart to tell you, and plus I could hardly move anyway, so I was just in agony, and I was just like, "Oh, thank you so much."
I probably just thought chocolate makes
Yeah.
everything better.
No, but I mean, I always thought that it did, but I was, you know what I was like before? We were a bit of, oh, what's the word? We were like gym bunnies, health freaks. So it
Yeah,
was,
you were health. Yeah, I remember.
I didn't
Kickboxing.
eat any of that nonsense at the gym 6 days a week. Whereas now it's the opposite. I haven't seen the gym for like 6 years and I eat chocolate every day.
Funny.
But you coming up, honestly, like, I feel that's like a real, you know, when it's like World Women Day or World Women Day? No, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, like,
That was
that'll do. Like, they're the sort of stories that, like your story of how you treated me, a complete stranger, they're the sort of stories that need to be shared.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Because what
But
there's other women on that ward, and no one else was talking to me. You know, like.
you're probably thinking, "Oh my God, Mum, it's that weirdo
Yeah.
who was sat next to me on the wall."
I'm trying to text her, like, I can't even see properly, like, she's on her way.
But I don't even know how they let me on the ward because I wasn't family, and it's the high dependency. I had to press a button to get in.
So good. You're like spread of infection just because you turned up. Oh my God.
So funny.
Yeah. I was there for like a week. I was so ill.
Yeah.
Did I
Yeah.
show you? Because I know, sort of like as we became closer, I share lots of graphic stuff with you. But did I ever show you the the tube that was coming out of me, or did I just tell you about it?
You probably just told me. I don't think
Because
I
now
saw
I would
it.
tell you. Now I would show you. I'd be like, look at this. Just take the blanket off and be like, check this out.
No.
Well, I must have just told you about it.
Well, imagine if they hadn't believed you and you hadn't gone into hospital that night
Yeah, I think that all the time.
after bleeding that much.
Because with my second miscarriage, that's how much I bled, and that's why I had to have like an emergency D&C then as well. I turned up at A&E, but yeah, I had a full blood transfusion. It was really bad, really bad.
Yeah.
But imagine if you live. Imagine this has happened to you. Like you read stories about you know, like asylum seekers or people that live in Africa that are sort of just moving from one place to another, and they just give birth on the side of the road, and then they just like deliver the placenta and that's it, and then they just carry on forever and they're fine. But imagine some of the horrible stuff that would happen if you just can't control that bleeding.
No.
I definitely remember laying there thinking, I think they really need to stop this now. Like, because you know, we were laughing about that like bit where I was in the toilet, and obviously I remember being actually pleased, so pleased that I was bleeding, because I was like, okay, now they're just going to see, and
Like
maybe they
show
could
them.
just examine me, yeah, and just sort of like see what's going on. And then when it wouldn't stop, I was like, oh, this isn't good now. This is they need to hurry up
Scary.
and do something. I feel like we're just sitting here.
I'm glad we can laugh now.
Yeah, and I hope that people don't think that I'm not taking it seriously, but it's different because we're friends and we've been through a lot together
No,
since
but the
as
thing
well.
is, if you
So
don't laugh, you'll cry.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
I'm laughing about our friendship rather than about what
the
happened to us.
situation.
Yeah,
No, I know.
you know, do you ever think about what you probably do,
What could have,
like what that baby would have been like, especially as you have two?
um when I had my molar pregnancy, my that baby would have been due on the 8th of June 2015.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think now, like every 8th of June, I don't think, oh, if I'd had that baby, there'd be 2, 3, 4, 5. But I did like the first year. So
Yeah.
after when that first, or maybe even the first and second, I did think then, oh, I should have, like, this would be my due date. I definitely did think then. But then after that, I haven't.
And do you think it's because you had Samuel? So
yeah, I think it probably was because I had Samuel, and I was always yeah, I just didn't really think about it. I did the first two, like probably the first and the second years I had thought about it. I definitely don't think about it now.
no.
But I think it's probably because I'm grateful that I've got two, whereas like some people can't have any.
Yeah, I think that probably after you had Samuel, you didn't have that sort of what if anymore because you had
No,
Samuel.
what it does do. So after you have a baby, they obviously called, after you've had a miscarriage, a baby after a miscarriage is like a rainbow baby, isn't it? That's what people call them. So with Samuel, he is my rainbow baby, and because he's my rainbow baby, I'm very protective of him. Like I am, like I'll cuddle him sometimes, and I'll think he's my little miracle.
Yeah, but he is in his own right, though.
Yeah,
I love that boy.
yeah. So I think that's probably why I don't think about what the molar pregnancy could have been.
Thanks
I
for
do sometimes. Like sometimes I think, oh, but I don't overthink it. I don't get upset about it anymore.
thanks for answering that, because that's a bit of a weird question, I think. And
I think in your situation is completely different, because you physically held your baby, so you it's normal for you to think every single year, all the time, about
yeah,
what she'd be like, I wonder what she would look like, I wonder what she would have been. That I think that's probably quite normal.
yeah,
But I
and
think
I
had
sorry,
miscarriages, so it's like I think people that have just had like a normal miscarriage, some do, but I probably expect that a lot of them don't overthink it every year. It's not, it wouldn't be good for them to do that mentally, to just overthink things like that. But I think people that have actually had a baby and then held
yeah,
the baby and then it's died, I
yeah.
think that's different. I think everybody probably thinks about it every year.
Yeah, because I think that if I hadn't have had Isabella, well, because the pregnancies came so quickly, it wouldn't have been possible for me to have 3 children because because the gaps weren't big enough. So yeah, I don't necessarily think about the first 2 and what they could have been because I had Isabella.
Yeah.
However, with my second pregnancy, I had heard and seen the heartbeat at 10 weeks before I had my miscarriage. So that's always been a bit of a, oh, like I wonder if that pregnancy had continued, would it have ended the same way as Isabella? And then obviously Isabella wouldn't have come because I wouldn't have got pregnant that quickly.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I don't I don't know. I think I contradict myself because sometimes I say, oh, I'm not really a what if girl, but I think I'm a what if girl when it comes to Isabella.
Yeah.
Like, but more of a what she would be like now rather than what I could have done to stop her coming early. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what she'd be like at school, what
Yeah.
her character would be like, what she'd look like,
Yeah.
what kind of friends she'd have,
Yeah.
whether she'd dress like a girl or a boy,
Yeah.
all little things.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're probably the things I think about how I imagine Tiana to be when she's older.
Yeah.
But she's here. So, yeah.
Yeah. Which, I know I said earlier that things don't happen for a reason, but I believe in fate, and I believe that you were such a kind stranger and you've become one of my best friends, and it was all just because of some unfortunate incident that we were both going through. And I love you, and thank you so much for talking to me about your experience.
Oh, that's so sweet. No, thank you for asking me. And you're just amazing. You're strong and amazing. And I probably would have been a lot more upset after my Molar pregnancy if I didn't have you to talk to, because I didn't really talk to anybody else about it apart from you.
Oh.
So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for finding the Baby Loss podcast and listening to Sam's story. If you would like to be a guest on my podcast and share your baby story, or if you would like your baby loss charity featured, then please get in touch by searching Baby Loss Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and my YouTube channel. If you have been affected by today's episode, then please reach out. SANS can be reached via their website, sans.org.uk, spelt SANDS, their Facebook page and their helpline on 0808 164 3332. If you require immediate help, you can call the Samaritans 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for free on 116 123. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.